In this video, we're going to talk about how many MPTs you should do to put yourself in the best position possible to pass the bar exam. So remember that the MPT, or the Multi-State Performance Test, is worth 20% of your total uniform bar exam score. That's the equivalent of 70 multiple choice questions. So it's a very important piece of your bar exam. Before we talk more specifically about how many MPTs you should complete in your practice, I have two basic pieces of advice. First things first, if you're taking the MPT seriously, this means that you are starting your practice of MPTs early on in your bar prep study schedule. If you can, please avoid cramming for the MPT at the last minute. It's better if you can walk into this portion of the exam feeling very confident, knowing that you know exactly what to do. And you can, so long as you start this portion of your bar prep early. The second tip that I have for you is to familiarize yourself with the frequency in which these tasks are tested. If you have looked at our frequency chart, or maybe you have a frequency chart in your bar prep materials, you would notice that objective memos are the most highly tested MPT task. Then next in line are persuasive briefs. I point this out because at a minimum, you want to make sure that you've practiced these types of MPTs and that you're very comfortable with them. This is because it's very likely that you will see one, if not both, of these types of MPTs on your bar exam. It's also helpful to be familiar with letters, both opinion and demand letters, as those are tested frequently enough. And it's also good to try your hand at a wildcard task or odd tasks, especially if you struggle with timing or stress. So now that we've gotten those basic pieces of advice out of the way, how many MPTs should you do? We first advise that you start with that most highly tested task, the objective memo. And we would first advise that you do at least 2. And that you're taking adequate amount of time to self-grade and look at the point sheet and to look at a good student sample answer to see what you're doing well and what you can improve upon. Depending upon your performance there, I recommend that you do anywhere from 1 to 2 more. If that practice goes well, then you should move on to working on persuasive briefs, the second most highly tested task. And very similar advice for briefs as I gave you for memos. I would start by writing 2, obviously taking the time to adequately self-grade them, and then from there evaluate how you're doing. Most people might find that sufficient, or they go on to do about 1 to 2 more as well. Then from there, move on to letters. I recommend at a minimum, you practice at least 1 opinion letter and at least 1 demand letter. Some people find that adequate. Other people find that it's helpful to do anywhere from 1 to 3 more of each. Finally, you'll be best prepared if you try your hand at some odd tasks. If you want to be very prepared, you could try each one of the odd tasks that they've tested before. Now, most people don't find that necessary, and instead, they find that if they've practiced at least a few odd tasks, that they feel pretty confident that they can handle what's provided to them on bar exam day. But if you struggle with timing and or anxiety, I highly recommend that you practice multiple odd tasks to make sure that you can walk into the MPT portion of your bar exam very confidently. Again, if you are practicing early on in your bar prep calendar, you'll find that you will very easily be able to complete this number of MPTs. We hope that you found this video helpful in your MPT preparation.